Alright, so in this lecture I want to get to the point of being able to render our stuff out. So that means being able to take our textures, applying them onto our items, and then going through some lighting and rendering and whatnot. I'll show two different ways. One of them is through Cinema, and the other one is through Keyshot. Keyshot is the preferred method. It's kind of the industry standard for doing renderings. Products, vehicles, characters, anything really you can do in Keyshot. It's pretty amazing. So this is one of my textures. You can see it's pretty simple. It's MACA, conditioner. I spelled everything correctly. The milliliters are 251.0 milliliters. Some simple graphics, and that's it. And if I turn on my wireframe, you'll see that this is the UV that I got out of Cinema, and I'm using that to line up my stuff. I'm using Illustrator for this, and that is my conditioner. And the same file, I have my body cleanser, which is also right here. Okay, so inside of Illustrator, whenever I'm doing these kinds of things, I go to File, Export. I export it as, and I'm exporting this as a TIFF. And I make sure I say use artboards. If I don't, it'll actually export out with this in my scene, and I don't want that. You can say range. There's only one in here, so that shouldn't matter. And then I give it a label, a name that is going to be specific. I also made a source images folder where I put all my UVs, and that's where I put my textures as well. Okay, so I did that for the conditioner, and then I did that for my other one. There it is, for my body cleanser as well. Not into the background, but it's there. Okay, and then this is the part we're going to eventually get to, so I'm just going to delete all my other stuff that's in here. And delete all my textures. Okay, and you can attack these one at a time. It's typically easiest to do it that way. Let me just turn off under my layers, turn off my conditioner. Okay. So we'll focus on the shampoo bottle first, and then we'll do the other stuff. So just getting it placed on there, let's double click. Let's double click the material. Call this, I call it shampoo, but I just label it body lotion or body cream, something. Under the color, I'm going to click on the map, and I'm going to go find my folder. Now we're going to do this twice. I'm going to do it the wrong way first, which is this way, and then we'll do it the right way. So I need to find my TIFF, which is body cleanser, product label body cleanser. There it is. Sometimes I have two versions here, so you see this one and this one. As you're working inside of Cinema, if you make a change in Illustrator or Photoshop, it doesn't let you override that file, so you have to create a different version and then save it out. So I just realized this is 873 kilobytes. That doesn't seem right. Let me open this in Photoshop. Let me make sure that I didn't save this at some ridiculous resolution, which is what it looks like I did. Image size, yep, 17,000 pixels. I'm not sure how that happened. So it should be 4,096 pixels. So a TIFF is non-destructible, so I can open it up, make changes to this, and then save it, and I don't have to worry about, you know, losing quality. So that's much better. 50 megabytes. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. Okay, just making sure I got the right one. All right, so we'll get this message. Anytime we use an image, it'll pop this up. So I'm going to say, no, don't copy that. All right. Now what this is doing is it's going to do the exact location. So D:P *, blah, blah, blah. We want to use a relative location, meaning that it looks at where this file is saved, and it'll look for this texture inside of that area. So I'm going to go to Edit, Preferences. On the school computers, you'll have to do this every time, but on your home computers, you just have to do this once per project. So under the Files, under Paths, I'm going to do a File Assets. I'm going to say Add Folder, and I'm just going to link in here my product folder. Okay, and then I close. So now I'm going to clear this, click on that again, and then load it again. There it is. No. What? Why didn't you work? Oh, oops. I didn't click the exact source images. That's what I forgot to do. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I made sure that my preference went to the right source images folder, and now it just says the name. So when you work on this any other time, your first step before you even open it is to go into your preferences and verify that you've linked where that source images folder is. At home, wherever it is, and then that way it'll automatically link it there. Otherwise, every time you go home or work in the labs or bounce between computers or folders or whatever, you have to relink all your files. So we don't have a lot, but you still don't want to have to do that. Okay. I have the color on there. That's all good. Close this. Let's drop it onto the bottle. Let's delete some of these other tabs we have here. Okay, body lotion. It's thinking. Alright, finally came up. I don't know why it took so long. Alright, so it's in the exact spot that we need. If it wasn't, I could jump back into Illustrator, adjust its position, and get it that way. I could also go into my UVs, grab my bottle shape, double click the UVs, come on. Alright, it doesn't want to let me select it, so I'm just going to go to Marquee and marquee the UVs. There we go. And then I can go to the Move tool, and if I needed to, oh my god. It's fighting me. It's fighting me. Alright, I can go to my Move tool, and I could adjust its position slightly in here. Okay, I wouldn't want to go too much, but if it's just a slight adjustment, sure. Some things you'll get, sometimes it is flipped. So if that's the case, I can rotate this 180, and that will flip it 180 degrees. Okay. It came in perfect, so I don't need to worry about that. There we go. Cool. Okay. Now I'm going to need some sort of environment. So if we look at environments here, these are different environments that people have used for different products, and so kind of looking at these and what they are doing is obviously will help the end result, right? So something like this, we've done this background before. This is the exact background we did for our text, where we have this seamless backdrop. We have a shadow on there, which is nice. We could definitely do something like that. You'll see those used a lot. We have ones like this, where we have two things. We have this kind of gradient here, and then on the bottom we have just a ground plane. Okay, so again, something that is very popular. Here's shampoo one where you don't even see the ground. Obviously you want to see the ground or something there to kind of ground us into what it's going to look like. Some stuff like this where you have like a splash, you have this black, those can look really cool. Same thing here, we have this darkness happening there, we have kind of a spotlight set up on this bottle. Now some of the stuff to kind of look at too while we're looking at this kind of stuff, look at the highlights. If you see a highlight here and you see a highlight there, those are the lighting for it, okay? So this is actually like one big long light on the right, one big long light on the left, and that's what's causing this to look very rounded. And you'll see that on many products. If I go to this one, it's harder to see on this one, but if I move my mouse away, stupid, you can see that there is a definite brightness on each side. Here's another one, a brighter side here, a little bit softer there, but still the same idea. Here's this indigo bottle, brightness on this side, brightness on that side. Brightness on this side, brightness on that side. Okay, so you'll see that kind of lighting set up all over the place. Kind of a neat little box that they have on top of there. A lot of times you'll see these too, where we have these seamless backdrops where it's like rounded. So you still get kind of like this ground area, but it's a lot softer. I think I have one of those inside here. Yeah, so something like this one here, where you can see there's a harder line. It's not hard, it's a harder line, where basically they have a ground and then it swoops upwards. Okay, you'd see those if you took like the photo class. So I'll go through a couple different scenarios here. So I'm going to create a cube. I'm going to go to faces, I'm going to hit C, and I'm just going to delete those pieces. Then if I just take this and make it huge, and whenever I make anything huge, I don't skimp on that. I literally make this enormous. There we go. And then I'm going to go to this edge, and I'm just going to add a bevel, and then make a bunch of divisions in there. Now what that does, it gives us this backdrop setup. Now if we wanted this to be a little bit more backdroppy or softer, then we can just change that angle. So really make this like that, and we get this huge swoop coming in. Still lots of divisions to keep it nice and smooth. And then when we get in here to our product, we can see it. Now I can't see the pivot, so I'm just going to hit the pivot tool, drag this down to the bottom. This will make it easier for me to adjust its position. Okay, so I turned off the pivot tool, and now I can slide that down. Okay, I'm going to scale it up too. And there we go. So now we have this transition from here into that. Okay, so that's one setup you could do. I'm just going to hide that. Another setup is doing like we did before, putting in a floor, putting in a background, and then creating material for that. Okay, either way we create material, whether it's the backdrop or the cube that we have this seamless backdrop, but we have to create some kind of backdrop. So I'll call this seamless background. And I'll go to my texture, I'll load a gradient. And we've used before circular, that's the one we use to create ours, but you can look at some of the other designs, especially when you do products, you want your item to stand out. So sometimes finding something here, might make it a little bit more interesting to look at. There's a diagonal one. Okay. You can also go into the texture mode. Oh, there it is. We can also mix color here. So if we went to the red and change this to, let's say, multiply, then we're taking the red color and multiplying it times the gradient without actually having to deal with, the red right there. Okay. We could also add turbulence to this. That might be a nice effect, or we might want it to be a little more subtle. Increasing the frequency amount, lowering the scale. There we go. So we'll try something like that and see what happens. I'm going to take this color really far down. Keep in mind the kind of products you have. So things that are making you clean typically are blue. Things that are fancy are typically black, dark blues, purpley kind of color, like dark purple colors. Things that are feminine, usually pastels, pinks. It really depends on what product you're going for. I already have blue mixed into this, so I'm going to kind of tint this into a bluish area. So let's just drop that onto the background. Let's drop this onto the floor also, and set both of these to be frontal. That's how we did them in the other one. Okay. Go to my render settings. I'm just going to reset this. Typically it's on standard. We want this to be physical. Let me turn off some of the other stuff that I have set up here. I think that was it. Yep. And I'm just going to reset my size to 600 by 300 by 600. size is way off. Just do 500 by 600. There we go. Alright, so now if I Shift R that, we get nothing. Oh, there we go. Alright, so the ground doesn't even show up. We see that there. Alright, let's add some lights. So most of the time we want to add area lights. That's what we'll do. Oops. Now, as we add the area lights, we really want to play with their location. And if I'm over here, the light's going to turn out different than if I'm over there. Okay, so what I want to do is create the look of my scene first, and then go into the nitty-gritty. So I'm going to make a new camera, look through the camera, and then line this up. Okay, now we've talked before about focal length, so I'm going to set this to, let's say, 200, and then zoom out. And this will basically make my item feel straighter. Before it was distorted, it was kind of wobbly a little bit. I'm going to have two items here, so I'm just going to go and, plan on this item being here and then my other item being right next to it. They're about the same size. If you want to see what they look like, there it is. And that was actually pretty close. Let's move that over some. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to go to my camera. I think that's good. I'll back it off a little bit. I'm going to give myself a little bit of editing room. And then I'm going to go to my tags, cinema, and then just do protection. That way I can't accidentally screw up my camera. Okay, so now I'm going to jump out. Click on my light again. And I'm just going to rotate it and kind of get it positioned like we were seeing those other ones. So like I said, tall and off to the side. Now we have two items here, so I'm going to spread this out over this side. I'm going to rotate. Hit the right key first. There we go. Alright, then I'm just going to duplicate this. Oops, that wasn't duplicate apparently. So let go of Control first. R. Go, rotate. Okay, so I kind of aimed at that. We'll see what it looks like. So we'll go back into the camera. We'll hit Shift R. And this has to happen a lot quicker. Let me go into my render settings, physical. Yep, let me turn that down to low. Anytime we do test renders, we want this to happen quick. So it has to happen very, very quick. Back to that. We'll go back to this seamless. I think I'm getting some weird stuff happening from this gradient. So I'm going to take away the turbulence. There we go. Alright, on the floor here, I'm going to do my tags, cinema tags, composition or compositing, and I'm going to do the same setup here. Compositing background, and then don't let the floor cast shadows. Copy this to the regular background, and then render it again, and there we go. Okay, so let's grab our lights. If we look at, again, our reference, most of the time you'll see that they don't have very strong shadows. Okay, something like this, you can see there's some shadows in there, but it's not crazy dark. These here, that's a bit darker there, but it's not intense. Okay, so something we want to look at. Also, even though this might be using several lights in these scenes, a lot of times you won't see the lights both casting a shadow. So I'm going to just put a shadow on this. Always use area when we have an area light. Not sure my color. Oh yeah, that's right. Yep. Go to this light. Go to area, and we'll just see what we get when we put two shadows on here. Okay, we're getting two shadows. Okay, and that's the issue. So shadow number 1. I don't think I want the shadow on that. I don't like the way that looks. Actually, let me turn it back on to area. I'll just put it down to like 20%. So we'll still get some kind of hint of coloring there, but it won't be much. That's the wrong one. I like that one. I wanted the other one to be at 20. There we go. So that was a hint of a shadow over there. This really isn't reading very well, this bottle here. Let's go into the lotion material. We picked a color for it, and that's what we're getting. The rest of this is coming from reflection. So let's change this to Beckman. Let's just render it as we go, just so you can see what it's doing along each stage. So now we're getting this really sharp reflection there, so we need to adjust it. So if I pull the roughness down, that's going to basically get rid of those. Okay, my lights, even though it looked like they were, visible there, they're not actually reflecting. So if I go to my light, go to the details, somewhere inside here you'll see one that says show in reflection. Okay, so I'm going to grab the other light, do the same thing, show in reflection. Okay, still nothing there. Right, so let's look at this and see why not. My roughness is 0. Oh, reflection is also 0. Okay, so all my specular was, or all the brightness that we were getting here was coming from the specular, but without roughness we're not getting anything. Okay, so let's pull some of the reflection up. There we go. So now we're starting to get these lines coming down. We're starting to get that in there. I don't think I like that at all. Let's go to the roughness here. And that'll just help soften the look of that. There we go. And that looks pretty good. Now let's adjust where these are positioned and their thicknesses and stuff. Okay, so I'm going to jump out of my camera. This light on the side here looked like it needed to probably come back a bit more. And be rotated some more. There we go. And then the same thing with this light. This one could probably use some thinning down. And some rotation. Now let's jump back in the camera and take a look. Alright, we're still getting this really close to that side. I think I'm going to chunk up the light over here. Alright, it's a bit better. Hit escape, jump out of the camera, and I'm really going to push it off to that side. So back to the move tool, I'm going to hit W so I can just slide this over straight, and then rotate. Hit W again, rotate it like that. Alright, let's jump back into the camera, re-render it. That looks a bit better. We're seeing the edge of this. That one will be fine. We just need to adjust the lighting. Okay, so I'm going to go to this light, and let's take down the intensity of it to like 75. Let's take it down a bit more, 50. There we go. Okay, the other light we're going to do the same thing. So let's take this down to 60 here. Okay, now we are losing some light in the scene overall because obviously we're turning down our lights. So I'm going to duplicate my light. Doesn't matter which one because I'm going to adjust the settings. I'm going to put it in front. That seems good. And then I'm going to turn off any of the shadow stuff that's on here. Now if I come back later, I may actually turn the shadow on, just that one. And I also want to turn off that visible in reflections on this one. Under details, visible in reflection, get rid of that. because I just want this one to help light up the scene a bit more. Now I'm getting like a weird highlight on there. Let's undo that. And this is just going to be playing with the angle of it, trying to hit it at a different spot so that it feels a little bit more natural, just to kind of help fill in some of that color. There we go. And we can also say show in specular and turn that off, but then we would really lose that effect mostly. It would hit the color still, but you see we're not getting a huge difference because of that. So I'm going to still say show in specular. And let's go to visibility multiplier and turn that down. So this is a way for us to tone down that effect. Apparently it's not doing anything though. So let's go into the general, let's go to intensity, and let's set this to 20. So value and intensity are essentially doing the same thing. The darker this is, the less intense it's going to be. There we go. Now we can see a definite strip here. I want to get rid of that, so I'm just going to take this light. I'm just going to make it huge. Okay, this will give it just an overall color, which is nice, and then we're filling in the rest of this. All right, there we go. So let's go to the lotion. Let's go to our reflection. Let's take the specular up some, take the reflection up some, take the roughness up some. Okay, now obviously we're going to hit this point like, oh my god, that's like way too much. But then we can kind of dial it back. And the second you see that's not the direction you're wanting to go, then just stop it and then change some stuff and then redo it. Now, just like the hologram, you may not be able to get the exact look you're looking for in here, and that's where you can use Photoshop to kind of push it that extra 10%. Okay, so even this is almost there. I really don't like how dark that is. I want to fix that. I'm going to go to filter and enable filter, and you can see how I can adjust some of the settings in here just to kind of get a preview of what I can do in Photoshop. Okay, definitely not a only thing we can do, because it's really just doing a little bit of it, but it can give you a little bit of a hint. Now I think I want to take my color and add a little bit of color to this. So I'm going to use this add. And I'm just going to give this more of a, it's still going to be black, but I'm going to give it really dark area just to help fill in some of that gray that's kind of creeping away. Let me pull this specular up some. I want to see if I can really get more of that black to pop without blowing out the highlights. Yeah, that seems like it's getting there. And then I'm going to go to color. You can see how you can really play with this for a while, just really tweaking what this is looking like. Alright, so that's getting a lot closer to where we need to be, especially if we were to add that filter to it and start to play with some of the settings here. We can really kind of push that into more of a believable realm. Let's turn the filters off, back to our lights. So now I'm just going to increase the light intensity again, 100. And you'll see I bounce around, so you're never going to be set on, these are the exact settings forever. You will move back and forth until you find something that seems to be working. Alright, so that seems good. I think I want to take the color down a bit more. Really push some more of the black. Yep, that's getting there. Okay, so I'm liking the way that's looking. I'm going to go a little bit less on that. Alright, Alright, so I'm going to call that, as far as the cinema part, done. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let me turn on my other bottle. So my conditioner. I've scaled it, resized it, popped it into this spot. I'm just going to duplicate this. Now that I have this material set up, I'm just going to duplicate it, rename this conditioner, and then drag this onto the label. And then I'm just going to double click on that, click the folder, and then grab that conditioner label, which is right there. Okay, now all the other settings should come in. Now it does look like my label is a hair off. That might just be the angle we're looking at it. Let's see. I'm going to get out of my camera. It's still thinking. There we go. Yep, it was just the angle. Okay, just making sure. Good. Now, I didn't want to use this on the whole bottle because this one we've set up with just the label. If I drop this on the bottle, the texture will actually be like skewed and wrapped and whatever else. So I'm going to duplicate this again, call this conditioner bottle, and then just eliminate this texture, give this a dark color, and then drop that onto the conditioner bottle. And now when I render it, a lot of the work should already be there because I set it up on the one, made sure it looked good, and then from here it's just a matter of tweaking to make sure that it still looks good. Based on the new item that we just added, we might need to change our lighting a smidge. We might need to adjust our coloring a bit. Let me go into the conditioner bottle, and just as a for instance, that might need to come down a bit. And I may want to take the roughness up on the bottle some. Because the bottle really could be a different material altogether. Okay, and obviously this is taking a bit longer. Part of that has to do with the fact that I have probably that same thing. Where's my conditioner? Yeah, that conditioner, a huge file. I'm not sure how I screwed that up inside of Illustrator. So I'm just resizing it in Photoshop. It has 4096 pixels. No problem going down on the size. When you go up, that it always stretches things and distorts it. Alright, so there's the image. Pretty good. Let's go back to my conditioner, back to the color, back to this, back to reload. There we go. Hopefully it reloads a smaller one. Alright, so as far as the scene overall it's done. I still would want to go through and tweak some of the stuff. I really don't care for how dark this is up here. I'd want to add a little bit more lighting. That would be going into light 2. That would be going over here to my attributes and pulling up maybe this intensity some and then re-rendering it again. You may spend an entire 2 hours just tweaking what that material is doing to get it to pop, to get the coloring you want it to look like. With the thought in mind that, hey, you may go into Photoshop and tweak stuff, but still, you got to get it close enough to tweak it. You can't do miracles. It has to be, you know, pretty close. Other stuff I may do, it looks like it's getting closer, but it's still not there. I need to tweak it some more. Other stuff you may want to do is, I may want to give the cap a different color than the rest of this. We've done stuff like that before. So remember, we can grab faces. So if I go to my body lotion, I don't do that. I grab the faces for the top of this. I can create a material, drop it right on those faces. Okay, so that's definitely a possibility. You'll notice that all of my items are in their highest resolution, so we're not pixelated at all. It's nice and smooth. Nothing's distorted. Everything looks nice and neat. I do have other items in my scene. Remember, I had my wine glass that I built. I had my Gillette product. It's covering our entire screen right there. Again, something I could use, drop it into that mix. Let me grab my wine glass. So there we go. Now this is going to be for a specific setup. I'm just going to go into my camera and I'm just going to turn off my other items. Okay, because you might have a glass. I didn't go over glass in mine, obviously, but you might have something like that. Okay, so if I go in here, make my glass material, under transparency, you can come over here to the presets and choose glass. Drop that on there, render it out. Now one thing we will see, if we turn it on correctly, I have to turn on the rendering part of this. It looks pretty good. It looks, close to glass. It's not going to look perfect. It is missing some things, like we don't really see a shadow down here, or caustics or anything like that. I typically do want to add the ambient occlusion on stuff, so under Effect, Ambient Occlusion. It's not here now because it's up there. There is something called caustics that you could add to your glass as well. That makes it feel a little bit more realistic. You would get like the little transparent rings on the ground with the glass. If you wanted to tint it, you can go into the transparency, go to the hue, saturation, and value, and just pick a color here. So I'll say I wanted a greenish glass, and I'm just going to slide it up slightly. Okay, just that little bit is going to do plenty of stuff to make it look like green glass. If you go too much, it'll look like it's transparent and you won't be able to, or opaque, you won't be able to see through it at all. Okay, now we also have a blurriness here, so if I pull this up to 100% is probably too much. Let's go to 50. And then we render this again. This will give us more of a frosted glass. So if you had a plastic cap that would go on top of a product, this would be what you could use for that cap. Now, anytime you do anything bigger than just color, it is going to take longer. So the glass, which is transparent and reflective and has this blurriness on there, it is obviously going to take a minute for it to calculate. So I'm going to pause the video, maybe. Yep, I'll pause the video, and then when it's done, I'll come back. Alright, this is obviously taking a while. If you want to look at the before and the after, you can definitely see how that frosted glass is looking. Okay, I'm just going to stop it there. It'll take up 7 hours rendering this test. Now, if you wanted to have some sort of logo on here that would be transparent, I'm going to go into Photoshop and just make a new document, 4096 pixels. And I'm going to make a new layer, and let's just say that I wanted to put the MACA logo on here. Alright, so here is the logo. I'm just going to copy it, go over to my document, and paste it. There it is. Okay, and I'm going to do two things. Just make sure I give this color, so black should be good. Looks like there's a little border here. I'm just going to erase this. Yeah, somehow a border got into this. Good. And I'll make another one. Control click that. And then this one I'll give some color to. Okay, I'm going to show a couple different things with this one. So first, let's try to save it just like this. So we'll save as, make a logo, and I will put this inside of my product, source images, and save this as a ping. Transparent background. Okie dokie. Back to cinema. There's my glass. So I'm going to go to the color, go to the map, make a logo, and we get that. Okay. Let's jump out of my camera real quick. All right, that's not obviously right, but let's see what we can do. So if I go to the glass, which is here, oops, here, and I go to this, go to my attributes, Right now it's being projected with UVWs, so the UV mapping. If we haven't done this, which I haven't on the glass, we'll get this. I'm just going to change this to cylindrical and go to this and move it up. Okay. Now obviously we're still not getting it. It still just looks horrible. Even the preview image of this doesn't look right. Okay. Let's go back to this. So I'm going to put the white background on. We'll save this again as a ping. Actually, I'll save it as a TIFF for TIFFs or Targas. Oops. No layers. Okie doke. Alright, now I'm also going to save this one, but I'm going to invert it. There we go. I'm going to call this one Make a Trans. No layers. Okay. Okay. And now let's go to the color and we'll load in the correct one. Make a logo TIFF. Okay, so it does read it. We come over here. Yep, there's the logo. Now it does look like it's, you know, invisible here, but it is showing still. Or it is going to show some of that white coming through. Let me grab my item here. Let me scale this down. There we go. Oops. Now this is stuff you don't have to do when your UVs are all laid out. I'm just doing it because I didn't lay out the UVs on there. I'm going to make sure this is not tiled. That way I don't get anything on the stem of the glass. And when I did that, you'll see that, you know, the material just disappears. Oops. That. Alright, there we go. So now we can actually see the logo. And I'm just going to rotate it around so we can see it here. There we go. So that's good enough for now. Let's render this. We'll take a look. Oops, let me turn off the frosty. Alright, so already you can see that it's not looking the correct way. We're getting like this white bloppy mess inside here with the logo on the top. We need to fix that. So on the material, under alpha, I'm going to go here and I'm going to load in that transparency TIFF. Okay, now what this is going to do is where it's white, it's visible, and where it's black, it's invisible. So now if I undo this and then render this out, now we can see the Meka is sitting right here. Now this is another thing with the UVs not being laid out, is that it's like floating right there. So I'm actually going to go here to reflectance, turn that off. Color we can leave on, transparency. I'm just going to set this to 1. Okay, so now we're seeing some of that logo. We don't want internal reflections, exit reflections. Okay, so now let's see. So now we have just the logo out here. Let's take our transparency refractions up to 1.7. Yeah, I think because I don't have the UVs lit on the other stuff, I'm getting that weird black spot in the middle. Let me take a minute to lay them out real quick, and then I'll be back. Come on. Alright, so I laid out the UVs for this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that thing. I'm going to go to my faces. Oops. Already had them selected. Faces. I'm going to invert. and then delete. So I have one that's going to be my version of just where the logo is. Let me grab my marquee here. And typically, like on glass, you would have it either frosted or you would have, it wouldn't be just like, in the glass. Okay, and I'm going to duplicate this material and remove the material from this. So clear that, clear the alpha, leave the color, transparency, good. Okay, so this will be lathe 1, which is going to be glass, and then this will be lathe other one, which will be the logo. Now it's bigger. I didn't spend too much time kind of tweaking it. We're still getting some kind of weird blackness there. Let's see. Alright, so that's coming from the other one, the other glass itself. So let me make this cylindrical mapping. Oh, there's something clicked on there. I'm just going to delete that and just remake glass. I've clicked something wrong somewhere. And sometimes it's just easier just to do that. Little tint. Drop this onto the glass. There it is. Okay. That's much nicer than it was. And now we turn that logo back on. And now we'll get the logo wrapping around the glass as well. Oh, it's still as dark, isn't it? Something is not right. Let's go to color. Let's take this to black. Let's go to reflection. Make sure this is on the right one. Take this roughness down. Pull the reflection up a little bit. Alright, let's do a little troubleshooting. So if I turn off the glass and render it, we don't get that. Okay. If I turn off the logo and render it, it's taking a minute, and we do get it. Okay, so something I have done there. Let's go to the glass. Oh, maybe because I did tiling off. I'm just resetting all of these settings that I have here. There we go. So sometimes it's just kind of working back when you type the wrong thing or you're trying to demonstrate something and then obviously you do it wrong. Now I can turn that back on. Okay, and then the logo itself, which is here, we can really, give this a different color if we need to. We can multiply this times black. We can go to our transparency. There we go. We can give this like a gold foil-y color. And I think I'm going to take off, this is no longer glass, this part isn't, the rest of it is. But I'm going to go to reflection and turn this up to Beckman. Put my gold color in here. Now it's mixing with the red. Realistically, I don't think I need that. Nope. I don't even need the color there because it's coming from the alpha. That's what's cutting it out. And then I may want to scale it up just a smidge, just so it's on the outside of it. Right now it's perfectly lined up with the glass, so I might get some kind of artifacting, which is what I'm getting right there. But you can see how we can take that logo and put it on there. It actually doesn't look too bad like that. Yeah, so if I needed to scale it up, I can just grab the object, put the pivot in the center, and then scale it up a smidge. And now it'll be slightly bigger than the glass, making it appear to be a little more solid. You just see just that little preview area, how we don't get the little speckles in there. Okay, so that should take you through most of the kinds of shapes you're going to need, or colors you're going to need. Let me turn off my stuff here, put these back on, jump back into my camera. Alright, so now for the render, we definitely want to have ambient occlusion on, like I said. We definitely want to be in the physical render. We could add motion blur, or not motion blur because there's no motion, but we could add depth of field to this, but there's not a whole lot of depth in this scene. So not really a huge advantage in this one. When we save this, we'll save it into our product images. Sarcona rendered products. Output, this should be 2400 pixels wide by 3000 pixels tall. Okay, back to physical, make sure our settings are up to high, save, and then we hit Shift R, let it go, do its thing. Okay, then we can bring it into Photoshop and do some tweaking on it as far as coloring would go. So there we go. You can see in this one, that's what the original image looked like, and that's what the adjustments I did to it. Okay, so that's how you would do it inside of Cinema. I'm going to have another video. I'll show you how to take it from Cinema, bring it into KeyShot in case you want to go that route.